a lot of people in the United States and all over the world have been vaccinated. But why are some people still skeptical about getting vaccinated?
Well, so many things. Going back into history, there's a distrust between when you really go back into the history of how things have developed. How medical trials have been, that they kind of use it on the lesser people than the
less privileged,
than the elites. So so now people are skeptical, like, am I going to be a guinea pig?
Right.
But we are at a point now that you are not a guinea pig. I mean, millions, hundreds of millions have been vaccinated.
Yeah.
So the guinea pig level are way past. And so I want to encourage everyone.
And we haven't grown extra fingers or extra toes.
The only thing I'm looking forward to, Dr. Tade, is I want to be able to speak German, Chinese,
Maybe
security,
special powers.
And I thought that by the time I get the vaccine, I will have the ability to be able to speak those languages. But hey.
Okay. Well, we're still waiting. So, another question about the vaccine. Many people complain that the vaccine came out too quickly. What's your take on that? And that's actually why some people are skeptical about it. Like, oh, how do we get a vaccine within 1 year,
I have a very good answer for you guys. Is a development of vaccine itself. Okay. And this might be an episode on its own. So let me face the camera and give us a long talk on it. So the development of vaccines or medications are usually done by pharmaceutical companies, and the process are in phases. So you have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Phase 1 being the initial development, and then the trial on animals. Okay. Then you have phase 2, in which a small population of people are being tried on. And then you have phase 3, in which a bigger population of people, and then it can go to FDA for approval. And when there is approval, you can also still have phase 4 to sometimes study some of the effects of the medication or vaccine. In this situation, for instance, I will give you 2 examples. Moderna, the company, has been working on RNA, on using the RNA strand to be able to fight cancer. When COVID hit, they have already done all the science involved in the mRNA. So it was just easy to plug in and use it towards the vaccine. So it was a plug and play thing.
Okay.
I mean, and when I say plug and play, this takes a few weeks. It's just like the remdesivir, the medication that we use right now in ICU to treat COVID-19 virus infection. This medication had been developed before COVID, but it was developed for Ebola. But when it was developed for Ebola, it was not as effective for Ebola. So it was sitting there in the lab.
So it's possible to get a vaccine out in a matter of weeks, as long as it's already been...
Yes, as long as the background is already done.
Okay.
The science is already done. So remdesivir was already medication. It's medication that has not been effective for what it has been developed for.
And it already went through clinical trials.
Yes. Okay. So it was sitting there. Ebola virus, like COVID-19 virus, are both RNA viruses.
Right.
So if it failed in one RNA virus, maybe we can try it for another RNA.
One.
That's how remdesivir came about.
Wow.
So yes, within months of COVID-19, the trial for remdesivir was done. It was comfortable, and so it was given an emergency use approval.
Okay.
And I will explain what an emergency use approval is. So that's how Remdesivir became approved on time. So it was not developed from the beginning. It was already medicine that existed, and then we can use it.
Okay.
So also the vaccine, it was a plug and play, and it was developed. Once developed, you now need the trial.
Okay.
So the trial for the vaccine, the phase 2 was kind of rapid, and when I say rapid, is you give it and you are checking the blood level to see the levels in the blood and the side effects for the few people that you have given it for. And in a matter of months, you will find out what it is. Now, in real life, this is how it's done. Some of the things that cause medications and vaccines to take years for develop is not only the trials, it's the process in which the trials take. So, for instance, vaccine B, you might take up to 18 months just to recruit patients for the trials. Now, in the case of COVID-19, people were just there like, I'm ready.
I'm ready for the vaccine.
For the vaccine. So you're not looking for people for 18 months to try them on the virus. That's one. Number two, when you start the trials and you collect your data, you now take the data and send it back to the company. The company takes their time, maybe 6 months, to process and collect the data. And then after they have collected the data and formulate their hypothesis, they now take it and send to FDA.
Okay.
Now remember, the FDA, the members of the board for infectious disease, endocrinology, the different branches of medicine, for cardiology, they all have their members. And these members are not sitting in DC as employed. Right. They are in their different jobs, in their universities and all of that, doing their own things. So you call them in, and they usually have their meetings maybe 2-3 times a year. Okay. I'm talking of maybe the endocrinologist group have 3 meetings a year in which they look at all endocrinology medications. Infectious disease, look at all infectious. Now, if they had met in February and you submit to them in March, the next meeting may be in 5 months. So because of that, ordinarily it's going to sit there until their next meeting.
Oh, okay.
In case of COVID-19, we have a pandemic. We cannot afford to have them sit there for all that time. So we call them in.
So this, because what you're saying now is that historically, when what people are using to judge this situation is the history of how vaccines came to be, where they would have the meetings and just wait to see if it works. But we had a pandemic on our hands; we really couldn't wait. So everybody set everything else aside and focused on this one virus and getting the vaccine for this virus.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Now, when you have the vaccine and you the way we have it, and the FDA look at it and they grant emergency authorization, let me explain what that is. And I want to use sickle cell disease because I know I'm addressing Africans and African Americans and people who know people with sickle cell disease. So you know people with sickle cell disease. You know people who are suffering with the pain of sickle cell disease. You know people who have died from sickle cell disease. Can you imagine that we have a medication we have developed today, and it's ready. It's developed. We have seen it in clinical trials that it can save the life of someone with sickle cell disease. But the hematologists who will meet for FDA approval are going to meet in 5 months' time.
Wow.
When they meet in 5 months' time, there's no guarantee that it will be one of the things that they can go through. It might just wait till next year. So basically, I'm saying even though we have data and evidence that this medication is helpful, it may not get an actual approval in the next 18 months.
Wow. Wow.
So there's a need to apply for an emergency authorization.
Okay, so
Now, an emergency authorization can put this medication in the hands of the people whose life it can save within the next 1 month.
oh, okay.
So
Which is what happened with COVID-19 vaccine.
which is exactly what happened with COVID-19 vaccine. So it is not the first, and it is an emergency situation, and it had to be granted to save lives.
Thank you so much for shedding light on that. Wow, that was, even I didn't know some of those things you were saying, so thank you again. So there was the story of that it went. I think there was something online, and they were talking about people that needed transplant or surgery, and they got bumped off the lists because they were not vaccinated. I don't know. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that, or kind of because the argument is, why would they deny someone who needed a transplant or someone who needed surgery? Why is that? Why were they bumped off the list? I mean, if that was true, and what would be the reason for that?
So medicine is a profession where we practice a lot of ethics, and you did mention the Hippocratic oath earlier. So we have to, in every way, in all that we do, make sure we don't do any harm. And the same way that you would not give an organ that is donated by someone to a liver that is donated by someone to an alcoholic who had lost their liver because they are drinking alcohol. The same way, you should not give a donated organ to someone who is behaving irresponsibly by not protecting themselves with. Do not drink so your liver can be alive.
Right.
Do take the vaccine so your liver can be alive. So that's the thinking behind it.